right, that's the US President Donald Trump holding a bilateral conversation, a bilateral talk with the Emir of Qatar. But two big takeaways from what he said. One, he said that United States of America is not investing in Iran, as opposed to a Financial Times report that says that the US will be providing a $300 billion fund to Iran. So Donald Trump saying that US will not be investing in Iran at all. That's the claim he's made. Of course, we'll have to wait and watch what Iran and its leadership says on this particular claim. The other thing he talked about is Israel, about Benjamin Netanyahu. He said that I share a good relationship with him. But he said that he's not happy with the fact that Israel has been bombing Lebanon, and that the way Netanyahu has been handling the entire southern Lebanon and Beirut attacks, he's not happy with it. Also calling on Netanyahu to be more responsible, quote unquote, be more responsible toward Lebanon. So that is the big statement that's coming in from the US president. Remember, this is the G7 summit that's happening in France, and on the sidelines of this crucial summit that got underway today, Donald Trump, the US president, holding bilateral talks. And of course, as expected, the Iran war continues to dominate the agenda of this crucial global summit at the moment. So that is what Donald Trump has been saying about Iran. Remember, he has said that, in fact, on a question of how Israel will be moving forward with this particular understanding that has happened with United States and America and Iran, beg your pardon, he has said that Syria will take care of Hezbollah and that Netanyahu will have to be more responsible. So extremely important statement coming in as far as the Israel factor is concerned. Remember, multiple questions have been raised as to what Israel and what Benjamin Netanyahu will do now vis-a-vis Lebanon, considering the fact that Donald Trump and the Iranian leadership have had a peace understanding where military operations will be halted, including in Lebanon. Now, President Trump saying that we've asked Syria to take care of Hezbollah. Now, these are the big claims that Donald Trump has made. We'll, of course, have to wait and see, as always, what the Iranian side says. Remember, there's always been claims and counterclaims that have been made since this war began on the 28th of February. And after this particular peace understanding that has happened between the two sides, of course, we'll have to wait and see what the Iranian leadership says on this. All right, let me go across to my colleague Siddhant Sibbal. He's joining us live at the moment. He has been reporting continuously for us from France. Siddhant, extremely crucial statement coming in from the US president. One, that United States will not be investing in Iran, as opposed to the claims that have been made and the speculation that's been going on since yesterday that the US will be making a $300 billion investment in Iran. The second one, and a more crucial one, is the Israel factor and how he's asked Benjamin Netanyahu to be, quote, more responsible toward Lebanon.
Well, yes, a lot of comments coming from the American side, and do expect as the day progresses more such comments, especially given the fact that the world's media, which has descended here, wants to know about what is going to transpire on Friday. Now, Friday is the key day with the expected signing of the MOU between the American side and the Iranian side in Geneva, not far from the location where I'm standing, just 1 hour away. And before that, we know that yesterday Donald Trump said that Hormuz will be completely open by Friday, to raise comments coming, clearly putting pressure on an ally that is Israel, even though Israel has said that it is not binded by any kind of peace pact. But, you know, when it comes to these deals, negotiations, we do see a lot of back and forth. And in this case as well, there have been so many back and forths in last few weeks and months, especially after the fragile ceasefire came into force when the 40-day war came to an end. Now, for the G7 leaders, it will be a big focus on how the G7, of course, sends a message of unity in the aftermath of this announcement. The announcement, particularly when it comes to the conflict in Iran, but also hopes on the conversations on the conflict in Ukraine. Let me just briefly tell you two important developments that have happened. First, of course, is in next 5 to 10 minutes, we will see the first visuals of the plenary on the West Asia situation that is going to take place, that will see participation of the invited guests, including the guests from the West Asian region, that is UAE and Qatar. And secondly, earlier today, we saw a meeting. The first meeting, in fact, of the day was on Ukraine, where President Zelensky participated. And we saw those visuals of the French president welcoming him when he came at the G7 site, which is quite interesting because when US President Donald Trump came to the G7 site, it was a protocol officer that was welcoming him.
That's right, Siddhant. And, even as we await that plenary session that you're mentioning, it's, all eyes are on how America and Europe treat each other, considering the fact that there have been multiple friction points in the past leading up to this day where there has been, question raised on the unity on the united front that United States and Europe want to display. But unfortunately, they keep on, arguing or contradicting each other on several common shared concerns. And at the moment, of course, as we await that, Donald Trump really, dominating this entire summit with the Iran war. And as you said, the West Asian countries also being present there. Anything that you're picking up as far as this peace understanding that has happened between Iran and US is concerned? Anything, any more details that are now emerging at the G7 summit?
Well, it's clear. The signing ceremony takes place in Geneva on Friday. It will have representation of the American side by the US Vice President J.D. Vance. Now, we know that more details are expected. In fact, Donald Trump and the US authorities have promised that they will release the official document as well regarding this MOU, peace deal, agreement, whatever terminology you might use. But in terms of Donald Trump's Europe visit, it is always something that is full of a lot of news and, of course, a lot of comments. Remember, the last time Donald Trump came to Europe was in January for the Davos meeting, business summit meeting, and we saw that time the focus completely different. That time the focus was on Greenland, and of course the European leader were giving a strong pushback against his comments of taking over Greenland. That looks like a memory which is bygone. It's just been 6 months, and today again Donald Trump is in Europe, and the focus clearly is on Iran and of course on Ukraine as well, but clearly on Iran because it looks like that peace is near, even if it's fragile.
Siddhant, one of the things that is, and one of the photographs that is still fresh in the memory is also from 2018 when Donald Trump, and, it seems like he's sulking there, sitting on a chair with European leaders, leaning on that table, trying to sort of pacify him. And eventually the US president walked out of the G7 summit that time. That still remains a fresh memory and probably a concern, especially at a time when Europe and America are seeing friction points coming up again and again.
Well, correct. In fact, today also the first session that started, which was on Ukraine, we saw similar visuals. Donald Trump came along with President Zelensky and President Macron, and he shook hands with the European leaders. And then there was a moment where he was standing alone and rest of the European leaders were standing together in a huddle before the meeting started. So there is, of course, a visible tension when it comes to world leaders meeting Donald Trump. And there was a hot mic moment as well where we saw the French president welcoming the Ukrainian President Zelensky while taking a walk in a park. And there was this moment where President Zelensky asks him that what is he doing tomorrow, and he says that he is going to Brussels. But then he asks, are you going to meet Donald Trump? Then offered him that he's willing to provide that opportunity where Zelensky and President Trump can meet. So these moments can be expected a lot, but clear visible tensions when it comes to Donald Trump. Whenever he travels to Europe, whenever he engages with the European leaders, of course, they're not very much on page on several issues, but they'll be hoping to find some common ground on international issues, whether it is Ukraine, whether it is the war in Iran, or whether it's the general geopolitical situation, which is going back to worse.
All right, so let's wait and see, Siddhant, what happens next in the next few hours and days. I'll leave it there. Thanks very much for joining us at the moment and getting us the latest from the G7 summit.